So today, the reason we're only looking at one example today is because today they're going to give us different problems like this. Just give us a triangle, and they're not going to tell us what type of approach we have to prove it. So they're not going to tell us use side, 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 or use side angle side, or use the HL congruence theorem. They're not going to tell us. We're going to have to look at the facts that they give us, and out of all the theorems we've talked about, there's 5 different ways, we have to decide which one we can use. Okay, so a lot of application today. So that's why we're only looking at one example as well. So we set up our statement and our reasons. You get the idea. Hey, the purpose of writing is so that I can communicate an idea from me to you, and it communicates that idea. Explain how you can prove that angle A is congruent to angle C. So the other thing to notice is that they're not asking us to prove that they're not directly asking us to prove that these triangles are congruent, right? Right? They're asking us to prove that these 2 angles are congruent. But if we can prove that the triangles are congruent, then we can prove that that means that the angle is congruent as well. Okay? So how would we go about starting a proof like this? What do you think? So,
excuse me, do we have Arissa Schumann come office, please?
She is not here today.
Okay, thank you.
Start by that kind of caught me off guard too. We start by stating what they've given us. They tell us that AD is congruent to CD. Well, since we ended with D here, we have to end with D on that one. And then we can say AB is congruent to CB. So we have that 2 sides are congruent. Now, based on the way that this is set up, where do you think we want to go with this? Like, what congruence theorem do we want to use to show that these triangles are congruent? We have 2 sides right now. Is there anything that we can tell about the angles being congruent? Oh, so you're saying that since this side and this side, since these are congruent, and that means it has to be that angle is congruent? Yeah. What theorem would we use to support that? I'm going to have to look because I think that's a good idea.
I don't know.
Do we have a theorem that supports that?
Probably not.
Well, we might. That's not the way that I was thinking about proving it. So I want to see if we can go that way. Well, we would use, if that's true, we could use side angle side. But can we prove that that angle is congruent? So I like the way, yeah, Anastasia?
I was thinking you do BD and BD.
Do what? One more time?
BD and BD.
Right. That's the way that I was thinking we could go.
Yeah.
Is we can just say that, prove that these triangles are congruent using side, 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 and then say since we have congruent triangles, that means A has to be congruent to C, right? Because that's ultimately what they asked us. They said, show that these angles are congruent. So we're going to use our triangle congruence theorems. We're going to prove the triangles are congruent, and that means that the angles have to be congruent. So I like the way you're thinking, Layla. I don't think we can support just saying that those are congruent.
Why was it done? I was just saying that.
You weren't done?
No.
What?
And then the middle one.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the route that we want to go. And we just have to say the middle one first, and then we can say that they are congruent. So we have to say BD is congruent to.
What is happening with your writing today? You said kindergartner activated.
Boom, roasted. BD is congruent to BD, and this would be reflexive property. So now we can say these two triangles are congruent. AB is congruent to CD. That was ugly. This would be my side, side, side. And now at the end, we would say something like, since triangle ABD is congruent to triangle CBD, then angle A is congruent to angle C. So just one extra step there, because again, they want us to, the thing we are trying to prove is that those angles are congruent. Now we're using the fact that the triangles are congruent to say that the angles are congruent. Now I'm not sure what reason we would need a reason for that. I don't think we would need a reason. I think that would just sum it all up. The other thing is that they said explain how you could prove. They didn't ask us to write an actual proof. So technically, we didn't have to go through, like on the homework, if they ask you to explain, you don't have to go through and write a T-chart and give all your actual reasons. But I think that's good practice for us. So that's what we're doing today. I mean, not even a practice problem for you today, but what you'll do is they'll give you different situations with different triangles and different setups and different information, and they'll want you to take everything that we've talked about, all the theorems that we've talked about, and see if we can decide which one we're going to apply to different situations. So you guys can go ahead. You have about 34 minutes to, 34 minutes to do 12 problems, or 13 problems on big ideas.
You can write down
Here are all of our theorems. So I can leave that up there. Yeah, which, like we talked about last time, I think it's too many options.
There's currently, let me count. There's 18 options.